relation to the mind that is actually perceiving phenomena. So if we define it that way, then the definition is like this. Conventional truth is that which in which we assume the appearances that manifest to be there, to be actually real, because we do not investigate their nature. And that is the crucial thing. There's no investigation, no analysis. When we simply accept appearances as they arise to us, without any further questioning of, well, are they actually true? Are they actually real? Then that is conventional truth. So conventional truth is concerned with how appearances manifest, but not what is their nature. Ultimate truth is what arises to the mind when it investigates those appearances. And when mind investigates or analyzes appearances, it finds that there is no actual essence or substantial reality to appearances. They are actually empty of true existence or inherent nature. So, ultimate truth is concerned with the emptiness side. Conventional truth is concerned with the appearance side. Now, in talking about conventional truth in that way, we need to be careful, because we might misunderstand this definition to mean conventional truth is whatever I say it is. Conventional truth is whatever I think about the world. So he has a conventional truth, you have your conventional truth, but that's not the case. The great masters have pointed out that we can distinguish within conventional truth between a valid conventional truth and an invalid conventional truth. So, for instance, when somebody with an eye problem, like, say, cataracts, sees things, he is seeing things that aren't there even in conventional truth, because his senses are distorted by his illness. So this is an invalid conventional truth. A valid conventional truth is when we see appearances that do function. So, for instance, if we take the example of a car, if we were to examine that from the point of ultimate truth, and we took it to pieces, we would not find any truly existent car, not in the pieces, nor in the collection, nor owning those pieces or that collection. But nevertheless, we can get in the appearance of a car and it can take us somewhere. So it's functional. So that is a valid conventional truth. Some appearances which actually function in this world, even though from the ultimate point of view they're not real. So similarly, teachings like karma, cause and effect, these are actually valid conventional truths, meaning that until we investigate them, we can assume that they're real, because it's in fact the case that certain causes lead to certain results. But if we investigated them analytically, we'd find no inherently existing causes or effects. Yet nevertheless, it's a valid conventional truth to say, as it's taught, from virtuous acts come positive results. From non-virtuous acts come negative results. So that clarifies a little bit more what we mean by conventional truth. It is something to be taken very seriously, because if we ignore valid conventional truth, we'll have no basis for no way to create the foundation for Dharma practice, no way to accumulate merit, no way to produce happiness and avoid suffering. Yet, when we investigate with the eye of wisdom, we find there are no concretely existing entities there, such that we can say, here is this thing, there is another. So, of course, in the great treatises of pramana, of logic, you will see much more discussion of this, and of course also in the Madhyamaka text there's much more discussion of the ultimate truth, and the way ultimate and conventional truth actually are one in essence. And that is because when we say all phenomena are lacking intrinsic nature, as we see when we analyze them, we're saying that because those appearances are dependently arising. They're arising always out of the combination of causes and conditions, or in dependence upon parts, or in dependence upon a projecting mind. They don't have any intrinsic separate reality. And that lack of intrinsic or separate reality is their emptiness. And their emptiness is their dependent arising. So finally the two truths are to be united. But as beginners we approach them as separate. So that I just wanted to mention, because otherwise we're going to use these terms like ultimate truth and conventional truth and not be really clear about what they mean, what we're talking about. So, to return to the text, Rinpoche says, the main practice for ultimate bodhicitta is the meditation, the analytical meditation and settling meditation. In Tibetan, the terms are Chegom, analyzing or analytical meditation, and Jogom, which is settling meditation. So the first phase of the practice will be analysis. In a meditation that uses concepts to investigate the nature of things. The second phase of the meditation will be the settling, relaxing the investigation, relaxing our concepts, and simply settling in the space that is opened up through our analysis. And to meditate effectively on the nature of things, to discover ultimate truth, we need both of these approaches, the analytical and the settling. If, for instance, we thought we could properly meditate emptiness just by analysis, we would become stuck in concepts. We might be able to develop a very good concept of emptiness, but it would not be anywhere near the experience. It would be just like we've now got a new mental picture, but not actually experiencing emptiness in the slightest. We've just become focused on that mental picture of emptiness. So we need to alternate the analysis with the settling. On the other hand, if we said we don't need analysis in meditating on emptiness, we just need settling, that settling would become a dullness, like being spaced out, and have no clarity. So it would not cut through our delusions. So effective meditation uses both sides, analysis and settling. So we begin with analytical meditation, and that too has 3 steps within it, three phases of analysis. So the first one, in the root text, it says, consider phenomena to be like dreams. So what is the point? The point is that it's like we're now going to dismantle our mistaken picture of the world. Our mistaken picture of the world. And our mistaken picture of the world is essentially a dualistic picture. When we cling to things as truly existent, we do it in this way. There are real things out there, real objects, and here is also a real subject who is perceiving them. So a world of objects and the subject. And of course, because I feel the real objects out there, which I can grasp and take hold of, that makes me feel even more confident that here is a real self, a real subject, the real me. And there must be a real me because I am the owner, so to speak. I'm the one who perceives all those objects. They're real, therefore I, the subject perceiver, must be real. So in the Lojong approach, we begin by questioning, well, why do we imagine? Why do we think? Why are we confident that they're really truly existent external objects? And once we've investigated that, then we can turn to investigating, well, is there a real subject, a real me, who is the perceiver? So it's a step-by-step approach. So Rinpoche says, so first, the first stage of the analysis is that externally apprehended objects, the phenomena we think are real and out there, separate from my mind, externally apprehended objects are established not to be truly existent. And that's why in the root text it says, consider phenomena to be like dreams. So Rinpoche comments, apparent phenomena, apparent means that which appears to us, to our eyes, to our ears, to our nose, even the, of course, all of these through the senses appear to the mind. Apparent phenomena, the objects of the six senses, are not established as truly existent, being nothing more than projections or appearances resulting from the positive and negative actions of each individual being. Think these phenomena to be just like the beings and environment within a dream, which on waking are understood to be illusions lacking any reality, determined to train in this time and time again. So the analogy that the text works with in dismantling our belief that objects truly exist, separate from our mind, is that the experience of those objects is no more real when we actually investigate than the appearances we see at night in a dream. Appearances which, during the night, we take to be really true, and therefore we react to those appearances in the dream with desire or with fear or with aggression, whatever strong emotion arises. But of course in the morning when we wake, we realize, oh, there was no real happenings there. I didn't go to some real place in my sleep. Real objects didn't come into my mind. That was just, in a way, illusory, just dreamlike, as we say, not real at all. But of course it was very vivid, very, very strong in its appearance. And therefore I reacted to it as if it were true. So my question to myself is, how can I say there's any difference in the appearances in everyday life? What makes those appearances different than the appearances in dreams? And in fact, we can further consider this by realizing that appearances appear in totally different ways to different beings. So for instance, if one took the six realms, the beings of the six realms, from the gods down to the hell beings, it's said like this: the humans see water, the gods, however, see nectar, not water. The demigods, the asuras, see weapons. The ghosts, they see blood and pus. And the hell beings, they see molten fire and iron that is going to be poured down their throats. Which is the validly existing appearance there? Which is the one which is true? Which are the ones that are not true? And the answer is each is true for that particular realm. We see water, unless of course if we have a particular illness, we'll see something else. We'll see some yellow liquid and not water if we had jaundice, for instance. So the appearances are dependent, they're contingent, so they're construed from the mind. They're a projection of the mind. In particular, appearances arise according to whatever imprints are ripening in the mind stream of that being at that particular time. So, and that is why a hell being sees molten iron, a god sees nectar, and we see water. It's due to the imprints that have been collected from past actions and experiences, which are collected in this stream of our mind. And just like dream images at night, particular images come to ripen, particular imprints come to ripen and produce appearances. That is where they're coming from. Just as the appearances in the dream are just a product of that ripening of karmic imprints, so the appearances in everyday life are the appearances of the ripening of karmic imprints and nothing more. Or else different beings in different realms would all see the same object, and they don't. Then one might say, but we humans see the same thing. That's not actually really the case. Yes, we see something similar, but that is simply because all those who are now presently human have at this point become human because of the ripening of some similar karmic imprints which came to ripen in the bardo and then produced rebirth into this particular human realm. So we, living as humans now, are in a way the product of similar karma, or our existence now is the ripening of similar karma, similar imprints. That then means we tend to see similar things. And then we reinforce that by using commonly agreed terms, language, to depict those appearances. But that's all. In fact, if we really look clearly, we'd see that each of us is having even among humans, are seeing things somewhat differently. We just agree that similar experiences should be labeled water or fire or table. And that makes us think we're all seeing the same set of objects. But even that is not the case. And then one might say, but it's not true to say that appearances in everyday life are like dreams, because appearances in dreams are quite short, whereas appearances, I seem to see similar things each day. So doesn't that mean that I'm seeing something independent of my mind, which is truly validly out there? And the answer to that is no, that doesn't signify that at all. Because if phenomena really existed separate from my mind, as something external to it, there's no way my mind could actually take hold of it. There'd be a gap between the perceiving mind and the perceived objects. There'd be no bridge, no unity between the perceiving mind and the perceiving objects. So perception would not be possible. But secondly, appearances in everyday life, yes, they do seem to endure longer than appearances in the dream, but that simply means they're the ripening of stronger imprints. The imprints which are their basis are stronger. So if we have a very strong delusion, the appearances that are projected from it will last longer than if we have only a momentary delusion. That's all. So the source is stronger, but it doesn't mean there's anything more real. Otherwise, the longer we had a hallucination, the more real it would become. Whereas in fact, it always stays just a hallucination, just a pure product of delusion. So there's no way we can establish external objects as truly existent. So in the meditation session, whatever arises to our senses, visual objects, sounds, smells, whatever it is, we question it and ask, is this really something external to my mind? Or is it that it is really just a vivid, clear appearance exactly the same as a vivid, clear appearance in a dream. And we interrogate each appearance that arises in our meditation in this way until it's as if the feeling we have of a separation between our mind as subject and the external world as objects melts, and there becomes a feeling of kind of unity between the mind and its objects, and a feeling with that of spaciousness and roominess, because we're no longer grasping onto things as being truly solid and out there, which grasping produces a kind of tension. That tension relaxes when we understand that those appearances are just the mind, just the mind. So this is the first stage of the analysis. Of course, we repeat it many times in meditation sessions until this, as I say, this sense of oneness, this sense of unity between the mind and its appearances develops, and with this feeling of ease and spaciousness. But that is not sufficient for the analysis, because at this point we may then conclude, yes, there are no truly existent objects, but the subject perceiver, the consciousness itself, is real, is a truly existent entity. And if we assume that, then there's still something for us to cling to. We have not really realized the true nature of reality. We just have now a new and very subtle, the deeper form of clinging, one might say. Clinging to the mind itself as truly existent. So now we turn to the mind. We look into the mind. So as Rinpoche says in the commentary, this being so, that all appearances are actually just mind, it might be wondered whether the perceiving mind, that which has been confused in regard to external objects, if it itself possesses true existence. And true existence means, again, to say that which cannot be analyzed any further, that which is inherently existent from its own side, that which is not dependent, that which cannot be divided. That is our notion of true existence, which first of all we projected onto external objects, and now we are projecting onto the mind itself, the perceiving consciousness. So the root text says, investigate the nature of unborn awareness. Unborn here means like unproduced, that which something which is unproduced has never arisen, it has never begun, it has never come into existence. So, Rinpoche explains the line from the root text. When this mind, the mind, my mind, the one that I think is real, the subject perceiver, when this mind is investigated, it too is discovered to lack true existence. So how do we analyze? Well, we look to see if this apparent mind, this so-called mind, has any of the characteristics of a truly existent object, In pramana, in logic, when we're establishing relatively existent objects, we look at them from the point of view of they must exist in time, they must exist in dimension, and they must have a location. So now we look into the mind to see if we can find these characteristics of a truly existent entity. So, Rinpoche says, in terms of, you see, if a thing really existed, we would be able to say, here is its beginning, here is where it comes into existence. Then here is where it is now, its phase of duration. And then here is where it ceases. These are the demarcations of what would be a truly existent object. Beginning, duration, cessation. Origin, duration, end. So, from the first, at first there is no point in which it arises. Therefore it is unborn. This mind, how can we find its a place where it arises. What could it have come from? If we say, well, it came from material objects, mind cannot come from material objects because they have a physicality but lack sentience, lack awareness, lack consciousness. So the mind cannot come from physical sources. But then, if we say the mind came from nothing, then that is impossible, because from nothing comes nothing. Where there is nothingness, nothing can result. So mind cannot just have popped into existence, so to speak, from nothing. So, and if mind as an entity already existed, it would not need to appear again. So all the answers we could come up with for answering the question, here is where mind begins, how it begins, where it comes from, we can't find any such answers for this formless awareness. So we can't find any point of origination, no matter how much we look for the mind. And then we might say, yes, I cannot find the origin, but I know my mind is existent because here it is now. This is how it exists now in this present moment. But as Rinpoche says, in the middle, meaning in this immediate present moment of its duration, apparently, of its apparent duration, in the middle, it does not abide, the mind does not abide or dwell anywhere, either inside or outside the body. So again, with the kind of the tool of analysis, we look, where might my mind be? If it's truly existent, it must be somewhere. So we might say, well, it exists within the body. In that case, where would it be within the body? Wherever we locate it within the body, then mind would only be able to, if it was existent in the body, it would only be able to be aware of that which is immediately adjacent to it. If the mind was in the heart, it would only be able to know the parts of the heart. If the mind was in the pineal gland, as Descartes thought, this is all it would know. If the mind was in the the networks of the brain, that is all it would know. But the mind knows everything external, not just internal to the body. Not, of course, also to mention that mind cannot be identified with any of the physical organs of the body, precisely because they are material and are not endowed with consciousness, whereas the mind is formless and endowed with consciousness. So it cannot find any location within the body for the mind. So then I might say, well, the mind exists external to the body. That's where it's located. It's somewhere outside of the body. But where might that be if the mind is external to the body? If the mind is external to the body, it would have no cognizance of any experiences arising through the body at all. It would be, to say it's outside of the body, I might as well say my mind exists on another planet. It would be nothing to do with this experience here. So I cannot place the mind inside the body or outside the body. So again, as with looking for external objects, we mustn't just be satisfied with repeating the correct answers to ourselves that we've heard from the teachings. We must really look into the mind and investigate, does it have a location? Because if we don't do that analysis thoroughly, it's like our assumptions will still be in place. Because even when we first hear the teachings, still we've not rooted out our deep clinging and deep assumptions. It's like this, we really want to believe we are real. So even if we're Buddhists, even if we sign on to the teaching of non-self and emptiness intellectually, emotionally we still have a deep attachment to self. And therefore in this case, to our mind really being findable and graspable and therefore having a location. It's like we could say an unexamined assumption that we have. So in the analysis, we have to look deeply into this until our hidden assumptions are exposed and we see through them. And we see, I've been believing this from countless lifetimes, but it's simply not the case that the mind can have any location, can be grasped in this way. And then, so that is the duration. So then the third phase in terms of temporality for mind. Finally, there is no place where mind ceases. Because as I mentioned, when we project the notion that something is really existent, in this case the mind, we give it a beginning, a duration, and a cessation. That's the way we frame it to be able to get hold of it, so to speak. So something that has really come into being, really endures, and then will cease, will really cease. But in this case, we didn't ever find any mind arising in the first place. We didn't then find any mind existing in this present moment, enduring. So it's nonsense to talk about it ceasing. That which didn't begin cannot stop. That which didn't arise in any way will never disappear. So I've been imposing these false categories on the mind, arising, enduring, and disappearing. But that's all they are, false assumptions, false projections, acts of imagination, and not conforming to reality. So as Rinpoche says, and one could add to that also, for instance, as Control Thaye does in his explanation of this, we could look for the mind having a color, because again, and a shape, that it would be oblong or circular or triangular, or it would be blue, or it would be red, or it would be white. Again, it sounds absurd, but we have these assumptions that mind is graspable and findable. If it were, it would be findable through such categories as shape, and location, and color. So Rinpoche says, this investigation into the essence of awareness, which is just the unity of clarity and emptiness, will establish certainty in its nature being unelaborated emptiness like space. In other words, what we will find when we look with the mind into the mind, so to speak, is that there is nothing substantial there. Nothing we can grasp and say, here it is. I can hold it, I can fix on it. But there is awareness. To not find any substantial existence to the mind doesn't mean there's just blankness, like a black hole or a darkness, like a non-existent entity. A non-existent entity like, for instance, the horn on a unicorn. Unicorns don't exist, therefore the horns have never existed. The mind is not like that. When we say the mind is empty, we don't mean it's non-existent, because there is awareness. If there were not awareness, there'd be no cognition of all the appearances. And also, of course, there'd be no possibility of Buddhahood. So what we're discovering is that mind is the union, the simultaneous union of emptiness, because it lacks intrinsic nature, and clarity or awareness. That is its characteristic. So, in short, what we can say about mind is that it's unelaborated like space. Unelaborated means cannot put it into any category. Our dualistic mind wants to take hold of things by always putting them into a category. This is truly existent, or that is truly not existent. That is nothingness. That is a thing, that is a no thing, that is birth, that is death, etc., etc. But those are just our confused projections, our habits of labeling. Reality itself cannot be labeled, cannot be grasped, cannot be categorized. Just like space. Space has no beginning, no end, no center, no edge. We cannot say it's a thing we can grasp, it's like this, it is this shape or this color. But on the other hand, we can't say it's simply nothingness. So the space or sky is like a good analogy for the unelaborated nature of mind, of reality. So now Rinpoche says, and this is, if you like, the third step in the analysis, if recognition of the remedy, the conceiving of emptiness in the emptiness of mind, arises at this point, the root text says, even the remedy is naturally self-liberated. So the meaning here is that we have an illness, we have a mental illness. That mental illness is clinging to things as being substantially existent. As long as we do that, then the disturbing emotions will arise, desire, hatred, and ignorance and so on, which produce the basis for karma, which produces all the sufferings of samsara. We need to be cured of this illness of clinging to substantiality. What is the medicine? The medicine is to recognize that all those things we cling to as truly existent are empty. However, emptiness is not itself an entity, is not a thing. We're not going to replace one assumption that there are things, truly existent, substantial things, with saying, oh no, everything is just this substance called emptiness. So, as in medicine, when you've taken a medicine as a remedy for your illness, you don't continue to take the remedy, because otherwise the remedy becomes a poison and makes you very, very ill. So you have to know when to let go of the remedy. So it is in this analysis. When you've broken down, you're clinging to things as substantial, don't go on meditating their emptiness. You've done enough at this point. And therefore it said, let the remedy go free by itself. Relax the remedy. Relax applying the investigation into emptiness. As Rinpoche says, even the remedy itself, mindfulness of emptiness, is naturally self-liberated for the meditator in a state free from objectification. Settle without distraction in the wisdom that does not objectify the three circles. He means this. The way we've described the meditation up till now, in a way suggests that there is here a meditator who is meditating on objects being empty or the mind being empty. And there is an actual meditation happening, the meditation of emptiness. So there are three members in this dance. The emptiness of objects, the meditator of emptiness, and the meditation itself. Those are three things I can cling to. Those are three things that I can grasp at. And by grasping at them, of course, I'm not liberated from grasping. Precisely, I'm still imprisoned. So now one should let go of the idea of being a meditator who's trying to find emptiness. Let go of those categories altogether. Or the remedy will become a poison. The meditation on emptiness will become dangerous for us. This is very important because one can become addicted to emptiness, so to speak. And as Nagarjuna says, those who cling to substantiality are foolish, but those who cling to emptiness are incurable. He didn't mean literally, of course. Everybody can be cured. But he's strongly advising about the danger of clinging too much to emptiness in our in our analysis. So this third point is very, very important. So those are the three steps of the analytical phase of the meditation. Now, one might ask at this point, how long should one do the analytical meditation? Should one persist in it until one has really cut through one's clinging to things as being substantial, and only then start to meditate the settling meditation? No, that's not possible. one will really never get there that way. Rather, in any practice of the ultimate bodhicitta, one will spend a little time on the analysis. If at any time the analysis makes us feel tight or tense, or we proliferate too many ideas, it becomes like an internal mental dialogue, we should relax it immediately. But when there is still, as it were, some genuine seeing into the appearances or seeing into mind, that's good. But in any session, even when we're just beginners at it, we must stop the analysis at a certain point and switch to the settling. So even from the beginning of this practice, we're alternating the analysis and the settling. Now one might say, but how can I do the settling if I haven't cut through my clinging? Yes, that's true. In a way, that's a sensible point. But we're just practicing. We're just, as it were, approximating. In fact, actually, none of us will realize emptiness properly, that is to say, non-conceptually, until the third path, the path of vision, when we rest our mind and ultimate reality, emptiness, mixed together without any conceptual framework. So that's why I said only noble ones, only Aryas have the true ultimate bodhicitta. We beginners cannot, because we're still trapped in dualistic frameworks. But we purify those. So even as beginners, we try to model our meditation on that of a noble one, that of an Arya. So we do both the analysis and the settling from the very beginning. And gradually, we purify our misconceptions and our obscurations. This is an important point because some masters in Tibet said, oh no, one should only do the analytical meditation. We cannot do the settling meditation. But the generally great masters of Kagyu and Sakya and Nyingma really strongly stressed the importance from the get-go of alternating analytical and settling meditation. So now the settling meditation. So the root text says, rest in the state of the Alaya, the essence. So Alaya, the Sanskrit Alaya, in Tibetan is Kunji. It means like the ground of all, or the basic ground. Anyway, we'll say more about this. So Rinpoche comments on this line. Rest now, so for your settling meditation, rest free of sinking and scattering in this non-conceptual state, which is the luminous natural essence of the Alaya, the original nature, untarnished by discriminations of good or bad. So, in the Alaya, the term the Alaya, in the mind-only school of tenets, the Chittamatra school of tenets and the Mahayana, the Alaya was described as like the deepest level of the 8 consciousnesses. Just as in a stream, from the deep current, the ripples arise on the surface of the stream. Similarly, from the deep current of the base consciousness, the Alaya consciousness, as the imprints which are contained there ripen, they produce the ripples of the individual sense consciousnesses. That is how it's explained in the Chittamatra school of tenets. But for them, this Alaya consciousness, is a truly existent entity. It is momentary, but it is truly existent. But from our point of view, that is not exactly the real nature of the Alaya. For us, the Alaya is the true nature of mind, which is the union of luminosity and emptiness, and therefore is not actually, like they believe, a truly existent momentary entity. For us it is unborn and unceasing, the true nature of mind. And now in the settling meditation, when we let go of all the analysis, we should simply rest in that basic openness, that basic spaciousness of mind. Rinpoche says, rest free of sinking and scattering. Sinking and scattering are the great obstacles to meditation practice. Sinking means drowsiness and heaviness, where we're overcome by dullness and therefore cannot experience the clarity of mind. Scattering means agitation by concepts and emotions, which prevent us from ever resting and settling effectively. So we let go, we relax profoundly and deeply in what has been revealed by our analysis. Because the analysis was like a sword which cut through false entities, false imaginations. What remains is the space-like nature of mind, or as Rinpoche calls it, the luminous natural essence of the Alaya. The original nature, untarnished by discriminations of good or bad. Of course, it is what is referred to in other teachings as the Buddha nature itself. The Buddha nature itself, that is unproduced and unceasing, but which is naturally endowed with the qualities of a Buddha. It's our original nature. It always has been our original nature, but it is at this moment obscured from us by the veil of disturbing emotions and ignorance of reality. In a way, in the meditation, in a very partial way, through the analysis, we've cut through a little bit of those veils, so now we can settle in our fundamental, our original nature. The ground, the Alaya itself. And it's the ground because if this wasn't the nature of our mind, Buddhahood would not be possible. At the same time, although it is the nature of our mind, because we do not recognize it, it is like the ground also of samsara. Not that there's anything impure at all in the Alaya, in the Buddha nature, but the non-recognition of it acts as the seed of samsara. But recognizing it is the seed of nirvana. So for that reason, the Buddha nature is like the Alaya itself. Is the Alaya the foundation, the ground of both samsara and nirvana. This is how it's explained by the third Karmapa Ranjan Dorji in his great text Ningpo Tempa, showing the Buddha nature. So at this point, and if one has received those teachings on Buddha nature from the Ranjan Dorji's text, or even perhaps from the Jude Lama, then one should very strongly connect that teaching with this instruction in settling meditation, so that one will have confidence that when one relaxes, one is relaxing in the Alaya itself, in the Buddha nature mind. Rinpoche quotes Jetsun Milarepa to identify the Alaya. As Jetsun Milarepa says, to identify the Alaya, the empty and luminous mind of all of us sentient beings, because the mind, although it is, as we've just said, although it is unfindable as any object, it is not non-existent. It is endowed with luminous clarity through which it is aware of all phenomena and reflects all phenomena. So it's both empty and simultaneously luminous. That is the nature of our mind, and has always been the nature of our mind. That is why it is called the Alaya, the foundation. It is untainted by any fault of samsara or quality of nirvana whatsoever. What does he mean? He means that the Alaya is not whatever disturbing emotions arise, whatever karma is accumulated, the nature mind remains utterly pure, because it's like space. It cannot, no stain can affect space. Even if planets and solar systems explode in space, space is never affected or stained in any way. Similar with the nature of our mind. No matter what samsaric happenings arose in our confusion and delusion, they are unreal. They don't touch the mind. The mind has never become stained or made impure by all the manifestations of delusion, all the samsaric appearances. Yet at the same time, it's neutral in the sense that it is not biased towards nirvana either. Because if it was biased towards nirvana, there would not be the space for samsara to arise. So the mind is beyond the duality of samsara and nirvana. That is its actual state of purity and state of why we can say actually samsara and nirvana are inseparable. They're not two different things, one in one place, one in another. If we recognize the nature of mind, that is nirvana. If we do not recognize the nature of mind, that is samsara. So the spaciousness of mind allows for both recognition and non-recognition, for both nirvana and samsara. So this, Jesamilepa continues, is known as Buddha, the ground of all. Buddha as the Alaya. It is that which recognizes its own nature, the primordial wisdom of awareness. So when we talk about recognizing Buddha nature, who recognizes Buddha nature? It cannot be our ego. It cannot be our disturbing emotions. They cannot take hold of the fundamental purity because they're illusory and they're dualistic. So we cannot recognize the true nature of mind by dualistic thought. So actually, when we say there is enlightenment, we simply mean the Buddha nature is resting in itself. So it's like the Buddha nature is self-recognizing. Not that it is two, a Buddha nature which recognizes and a Buddha nature which is recognized, as if Buddha nature is a subject and an object. There's no duality, there's no subject-object there. So Buddha nature simply settles in itself, and that is what we mean by enlightenment in our system. So, again, like Jesamilepa says in another place, and Ranjan Dorji quotes this in Nyingpa Tenpa too, as regard to this Alaya, the Buddha nature, foolish beings cannot damage it, and wise Buddhas cannot improve it, because it's naturally pure. How can you add to that purity? So our way of thinking, our way of understanding the path is still dualistic. We think that the Buddha nature needs to be freed from its impurities, and we need to improve it by practicing the path. But that's completely untrue. No matter what delusion we had, the Buddha nature mind was never affected, was never made impure. No matter what practices we do, the Buddha nature is never improved. So it's like it said, nothing to add, nothing to take away. So that is the confidence we should have when we settle in the settling phase of the meditation. So Rinpoche says, so this instruction completes the settling meditation in which one continues to settle during sessions of the main practice. So for the sitting session, those are the two parts. First analysis, then settling. And in every session one should do a little of equal amount of both. Or if the analysis becomes over-intellectual, then you should relax that and immediately go to the settling. Now, every meditation ends with us re-entering everyday life, of course. So therefore the teachings will give us instruction on how to bring the meditation, or bring the experience of the meditation into everyday life, how to extend it into everyday life, so that we're still in a way connected with what we've experienced during the practice. Otherwise, the meditation will not really change us very much if spiritual growth, so to speak, to use a dualistic term, is confined just to the meditation session, and then we forget it entirely in everyday life. There'll not be much change, where there'll not be much loosening of our grasping. So we all need a way to bring our meditation into the subsequent stage, the post-meditation stage. So Rinpoche says, now the instructions for the subsequent stage for those who are meditating ultimate bodhicitta. And in the root text it says, between sessions, see everything as illusory. So Rinpoche says, between sessions, whether one is eating, sleeping, walking, or sitting, or anything else, of course, any other activities, transform all everyday activity into the path while resting within meditative awareness. So it's like mindfulness practice in everyday life is to extend the experience from the meditation. But how do we do that? Because one might say, well, in the meditation session, things are quite simple, and I can focus fairly easily on emptiness and even relax in the settling meditation because nothing's happening. There's no big appearances firing off, no big noise, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go anywhere. I can just sit here. So sure, I can meditate emptiness in the session, but in everyday life I've got so many things to do, so many people to meet, so many activities to perform, so many people coming, so many things going on around me. I can't retain the thread of the meditation. So how to do that? Well, this is the instruction. Without forgetting the meditative awareness that one has experienced in the practice, the spaciousness of mind that has arisen in the session, relinquish clinging to everything, to oneself, to others, the world and the beings within it, clinging to them as real. It is all illusory, appearing without truly existing. Bring this onto the path, and make this way of perceiving things your path, your way of extending the practice. And the sense of this is that, sure, after the meditation, things get complex because of the activities and the things that you meet, the people you meet. So, how to still experience this spaciousness in which you're not grasping at things as substantially existent? Isn't it more difficult now? There's more phenomena, more appearances that you're involved with. Well, yes, but actually, if you view them as appearances, but still without any inner core, anything to grasp at as real or substantial, then you can be very flexible and very relaxed. So the analogy to use is that all these things that are happening around me and all these activities I have to engage with, they appear for sure, but they're no more real than the appearances conjured by a magician. So a magician, a skilled magician, just with some props like some cloth or some wood, he can make the audience see all kinds of wondrous appearances just from the combination of his skill with these few props. So people believe that they're seeing ladies sawn into half or boys climbing a rope and disappearing and then their limbs falling to earth. All such wondrous shows happen. But if we investigated, we'll see this is just magical appearances arising from the combination, the interaction of causes and conditions. I see, but when I investigate, there's nothing to it. So I'm relaxed. Instead of being worried, oh my God, he's just killed his wife, I'm relaxed and laugh about it. Oh, somebody's just killed a boy and his limbs are falling to the earth. I'm amused and astonished by this appearance which is not real, but so vivid and so clear. So it is with everyday events. I've until now believed they're real and therefore reacted with fear or desire or whatever. But they're all just the combination, the interacting of cause and conditions, ceaseless interacting of cause and conditions, which means they are empty in their very appearance. So there's nothing to grasp at, nothing to worry about, nothing to take hold of, nothing to flee from. There's no need for fear or grasping, hatred or desire, or any of those neurotic emotions with which we usually react to the world. So instead there's a feeling of spaciousness and ease. Everything is arising as this play. Now look, when we say illusory here, in this Dharma context, we don't mean non-existent, as if someone may say, oh, your conspiracy theory is about something that's non-existent. That's not true at all. Illusion in Dharma doesn't mean that. Illusion means apparent but empty, because it's just a display of dependent origination. Some appearances are like one way, some appearances are another, but there's no solid core to them. So, like it says in the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That is the way we should perceive phenomena in everyday life. So in the meditation session, we're concentrating very much on, so to speak, the emptiness side. In the in-between sessions, it's the appearance side. But we've never lost the emptiness, because those things are just the illusory play of dependent origination. So we're still meditating emptiness, even in the middle of complexity, even in the middle of many activities, even in the middle of many interactions. I interact with somebody, but who is real there? Is it that the beggar and I'm the giver? No. And is this the act of giving? Those are all mutually dependent. He's the one who is giving to me by giving me the opportunity to give. And so I'm actually the recipient and he's the giver. That is equally valid perception. So in this way we do not grasp at anything as seriously in a kind of heavy, serious way. Everything is the play of conditions, and therefore never departs from emptiness. So whether we're in the session or out of the session, we're still continuing this kind of ultimate bodhicitta practice. So that is the instruction on the subsequent stage of ultimate bodhicitta. I've taken a long time, or comparatively long time, to explain it. But that is because it is so crucial, of course, that we're really clear about what is entailed here and what all the terms mean. Now to start on the conventional bodhicitta, or as translators put here, relative truth. Meditation on bodhicitta of relative truth. Well, we've defined relative or conventional already, so we don't need to go back to that. So here, for the conventional bodhicitta, the preliminaries are the same as for the general preliminaries, are the same as for ultimate bodhicitta, four thoughts, Sanamanta Dharma, refuge, bodhicitta, guru yoga, and calming our mind a little bit through the 21 countings. And then the main part of the session, part of the session is the practice of Tonglen, or as you translate it to English, usually sending and taking. Sending and taking. So, and as I mentioned previously, sending and taking is the best way we can practice the exchange of self and others. And the exchange of self and others is, of course, the core of the Lojong, because it's the radical reversal of our habits of self-clinging. You see, in the ultimate bodhicitta, it's as if the objective is to dismantle self-clinging by seeing there's no entities to cling to, either external or internal. So we relax self-clinging in that way. Now we're going to let go of self-clinging in another way, through the meditation of exchange of self and others, through the compassionate route, You want to say the first one is the wisdom route, to let go of self-clinging. Now the compassion route, the compassion method. So Rinpoche says, the object of this meditation is all sentient beings who are, of course, afflicted by suffering. So who are we going to who do we focus on? And the answer is all sentient beings, because all samsaric beings are afflicted by the three types of suffering, which we've already discussed very briefly. And we reckon in this meditation, the approach we take, or the underlying logic, one might say, for this, is to recognize each sentient being to have been our mother, and remember their kindness with gratitude. In the Kadampa system, as Atisha elaborated the meditation, they said there's a 7-stage meditation leading up to Bodhicitta, beginning with recognizing all sentient beings have been our mother. And the purpose of adopting that focus for looking at sentient beings is to engender gratitude by remembering the kindness that all sentient beings, who at one time or another, or in fact countless times, have been our mother. Because from gratitude, it will then be easy to generate the wish that they have happiness and the cause of happiness, which is loving kindness. And then easy to generate compassion, which is the wish they're free from suffering, the cause of suffering. When that is in mind, it's easy then to generate bodhicitta, the wish to become a Buddha for their sakes. So, starting with this perception of all beings as our mother is very skillful. Then one might say, but is it realistic to think in this way? Isn't it just some kind of fantasy? Actually, no, because as Nagarjuna says in the friendly letter, if we took one juniper seed to represent every mother we've had, the earth wouldn't be a big enough surface to contain all those juniper seeds we'd have to pile up. And the reason for that is because samsara itself is beginningless. Like Buddha said, we cannot find a first beginning because all events arise from preceding causes and conditions. So really, there is no beginning to samsara. Therefore, even though sentient beings are limitless in number, there's been all the time in the world, so to speak, for each one of them to have been our mother. They might say, okay, I can accept once. No, that's still not enough. Because there's been all the time, an infinite amount of time, they've all been our mother and father and son and daughter and all the rest, of course, innumerable times. But we focus on them being our mother because generally for us now in this life, our present mother is like a very great being to us for whom we will naturally feel gratitude. Actually, in the Mahayana Sutras it says we could proceed to meditate loving kindness and compassion through viewing all sentient beings as our children. And so that it could be used. That would be also a valid starting point for meditating loving kindness and compassion. But commonly it's to begin with our mother. And then through that, by recognizing all sentient beings have been our mother and have done exactly the same acts of kindness to us as our present mother, then we will feel this kinship, this familial relationship with all sentient beings. The boundaries between myself and others will start to collapse when I sense this indebtedness that I have to all of them. So that is the reason for this starting point. So, in the meditation session, Rinpoche says, first reflect on the kindness of your present mother. And so, and of course, nowadays in the West, people may say, but family relationships are very troubled. And my mother had these hang-ups and she forced me to do this and was difficult for me. That might be true in some cases. I guess the majority it's not true. But even if that were true, still one's mother, even if you had difficult relationship with her later, she bore you in her womb. She gave birth to you in great suffering and great trouble. She saved your life. She fed you and so on. So there's so much to be grateful for. that if it's necessary to overlook some later difficulties, maybe she didn't like your taste in clothes or politics or religion, it doesn't matter. She's done enough for you or for all of us already. So, reflect on the kindness of one's present mother. Then widen this out to encompass all other beings. Why should we bring other beings into it? Because they've also been our mother. Sure, I can't remember them now, but they have been our mother in previous lives, as we've established through the reasoning that samsara is beginningless. So I'm as indebted to them as I am to my mother in this life. So the next time you turn on your television or whatever, YouTube, and see some political figure you don't like, remember, he, or possibly she, was your mother. You're indebted to him also. I think if people started to practice that, things would improve pretty quickly. So maybe should start a party, all mothers party. All politicians are our mothers, whether they know it or not. Of course, American slang might agree that all politicians are mothers, but that's another subject. Even mothers are mothers. So, widen this out to encompass all other beings. And then Rinpoche continues, then, having developed this uncontrived sense, uncontrived means like you feel it in your heart, it's not just an intellectual plaything, intellectual idea. Having developed an uncontrived sense that all beings have previously been one's mother, from a state of loving kindness and compassion towards them, wishing they have happiness, and the cause of happiness, wishing they have freedom from suffering, the cause of suffering, then you practice what is in the root text, where it says, practice sending and taking alternately. Place these two practices of sending and taking upon the breath. So Rinpoche says, to explain this extraordinary instruction, since the bodhicitta of exchanging self and other is the essence of mind training, then here we send all of our happiness and virtue that we've gathered throughout the 3 times, together with our belongings and enjoyment of physical comforts, to other sentient beings. It's crazy. Why should we do this? It goes against everything we assume to be the case, which is I should have happiness, and any causes like for happiness that I practiced, virtue, they should ripen for me. It's, I should have it. But that is just the expression of self-clinging. The Bodhisattva acts completely against that worldly understanding, reverses it completely. Because in the Bodhisattva vow you've said, you will be like the earth, the other elements, the support of all sentient beings. Whatever you have will be for sentient beings. That is what you declare in the Bodhisattva vow. So now we act like that. Whatever happiness we're presently experiencing, physical happiness, mental happiness, we send to others, we give it to them. Because that's what we want. We want other beings to be placed in happiness and to be free from suffering. So all that we send to them. And in return we take on all of their suffering, both the causes of suffering, whatever non-virtue they're doing, and the results, the unhappiness they're experiencing now, or will experience in the future as the ripening of their negative actions. That we take onto ourselves without remainder. As we don't exclude, there's no, okay, I can do a bit of this. I give you half of my happiness, and I'll take half of your suffering. No, you're still then privileging yourself. Here we dismantle self-privileging completely. It's all or nothing in a way. We've got to give all of our happiness and merit to others and take all of their suffering from them and their negativity. That is the exchange of self and others, where we really put others first, reverse our normal thinking, which is I must come first. My happiness is most important. I'm paramount. I must secure myself. Now, we may think, well, if I've got some time later, after I've made sure I'm happy, then I can give them a bit. I can give them a bit of time. I can give them a bit of happiness because it's overflowing. That's not the Bodhisattva attitude. The Bodhisattva attitude is dedicated entirely to others, to their welfare. So now you're practicing this from your heart, so to speak. And these two, Rinpoche says, these two visualizations of sending and taking should be practiced in alternation. So first send, then take. By placing this very happiness and suffering upon the flow of one's breath. So, to take this practice like from an intellectual level to like a heart or gut level, whatever way you put it, you connect it with your breath. The most natural thing about our existence is that we breathe in and out. It's just natural, just automatic. So if we can connect this experience, this practice of sending and taking with our breath, we've given it an immense power, a more than conceptual power, so to speak, by anchoring it to the breath. Going out, we breathe out, we give. Breathing in, we take. So as Rinpoche says, to clarify it more, to meditate on this, breathe in the negative deeds, obscurations and sufferings of all beings together as black air, as a kind of pollution, a kind of black smoke or pollution that one is taking. It comes off from all these sentient beings who are gathered around one, all one's previous mothers. Their suffering and their acts of non-virtue come from them in the black air and enters through your nostrils and pores and then dissolves into one's self-clinging located in the heart center. So it kind of, it goes there to the seat of your own self-clinging. Now, there's actually much more Rinpoche adds much more to this practice, this visualization. We've not even talked really about the sending yet, but there's more to say about the taking. But time's winged chariot is hurrying near, as the great English poet Andrew Marvell says. I hope the translators can manage that. And we must stop for today. So, as I will continue, I think, in 2 days' time. So let's dedicate the merit from this brief session. Sunam di tamshi zikpa ne tobe ne pe dranam pamche ne chiga nachi bala drupa ye sipi sole droa sho. Okay.
Good morning, dear friends. Today, a short reminder that if any of you is new in Kibi and would like to know something more about Kibi, we invite you to join the short tour around Kibi that will take place at 2 p.m. We can meet at the information center, and we will start. Karma Sherap will give us a tour and share a little bit of stories. At the same time, kind request regarding the breakfast. If you will come to the breakfast before the gong, please wait. Don't take the food immediately so that the staff can prepare everything for everyone. So that's a kind request. Just to be a little bit patient. I know we are hungry. I know we meditate a lot. We think a lot. But let's wait a few minutes and then wait for the gong. And another advice to everyone. If you're planning to move around Delhi, if you want to go outside, please be aware that there is a huge pollution. Yes, so the most practical way to move around and not to block your nose is simply to wear a face mask, so that you will not really suffer afterwards. You will not get a sore throat, or you will not have nose issues. For now, that's everything. Thank you.
Check. Check. On. Check.